All right, Shalom, Israel. With the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge, started 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander General Yohanan. We're not affiliated with any other Israelite group or any other Christian organization. All right. Had to get the Wi-Fi set up. Don't forget to sign in and check in. Bubba Kushah, don't forget to sign in and check in. Bubba Kushah. Make sure everybody, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me just fine too as well. All right. So the first thing we're going to start with is the alphabet, all right? Now, when it comes to learning the Hebrew, when it comes to learning the Lashawan Qadash, the alphabet is the very first thing you want to learn. The alphabet is the very first thing you want to study, all right? You want to study it. You want to know it. You want to commit it to memory, all right? It's not something you just want to completely forget about, all right? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to comment under our videos, all right? Get them likes up for this class. The Hebrew class is just as important as that of any other class. Don't forget to do those things. Get that taken care of out the way. So the reason why the alphabet is probably the most important thing when it comes to studying and learning the Hebrew is because our alphabet, not our alphabet, our language is a consonant language. And because our language is a consonant language, you want to, meaning a consonant language, meaning our words have a similar sound. Our letters have a similar sound. And because they have a similar sound, it's actually very easy to learn our language. When you put our letters next to each other, they don't create different sounds because you put this letter next to this letter like the English language. Our language is very easy to understand and very easy to learn. You just have to take the time to learn it, study it, rehearse it, practice it, etc., etc. All right. And so the alphabet is very important to learn, just like in any alphabet or any language you want to learn. The alphabet is very important, but in Hebrew, it's absolutely essential because all of our words sound similar. All of our letters sound similar, and so because of so, that comes from the alphabet because our letters have a similar sound. The Hebrew is a consonant language, and so what you want to do, right, is know the alphabet. Make sure you take notes in it. So the first letter you see is your A. All right, this is your A. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to sign in and check into class. Our next letter is your Ba. You have your Ba in the Assyrian, then you have your Ba in the ancient. Next, you have your Ga. You have your Ga in the Assyrian. You have your Ga in the ancient. Shalom, Yahweh Shalom, Rashad. Next is you have your Da. You have your Da in the Assyrian. You have your Da in the ancient. Next, you have your Ha in the Assyrian. You have your Ha in the ancient. Next is you have your Wa. You have your Wa in the Assyrian. You have your Wa in the ancient. Next you have your Za. You have your Za in the Assyrian. You have your Za in the ancient. Next is you have your Kha. You have your Kha. You have your Kha in the Assyrian. Then you have your Kha in the ancient. All right, don't forget to sign in and check in. Next letter we have is your Ta. Don't forget to sign in and check in, but don't forget to sign in and check in with your name, city, and state. So next is we have our Ta. Your Ta in the Syrian and your Ta in the ancient. Next you have your Ya in the Syrian, your Ya in the ancient. Next you have your Ka in the Syrian, you have your Ka in the ancient. Now don't forget, you see your Ka right here? You see this Ka? This is the Ka that's found at the end of a word. Don't forget about this Ka. That Ka is found at the end of a word. So this is how you know the word is going to be that this is how you know that the word is going to end with the letter Ka. All right? In the Assyrian script. And you have your Ka in the ancient. Next you have your La. Your La in the Syrian, and you have your La in the ancient. Next you have your Ma in the Assyrian, and you have your Ma in the ancient. This is, now remember, this is the Ma. See where the arrow is pointing to? That's the Ma that's going to be found at the end of a word. Meaning this is how you know that the word ends with Ma in the Assyrian. Or you know that that's a Ma at the end. It's going to look just like that. And you have your Ma in the ancient. Same premise as your ka. Here comes your na. Your na has the same premise. Focus on that na at the end where the arrow is pointing to. Focus on that na as well where the arrow is pointing to. All right. This is your na in the Syrian. This is your na in the ancient. You have your sa in the Syrian. You have your sa in the ancient. You have your I in the Syrian. You have your I in the ancient. Now remember, when it comes to the letter I, right? That's the only letter in our alphabet. It doesn't technically have an ah sound when you say it. But now the letter I is it's like a very old letter, meaning, right? What I mean by it's an old letter, okay, it comes from somewhere. So before our language was characteristic, it was pictographic. All right, we had actual symbols, actual pictures to represent our letters instead of the symbols and characters that we have now that represent our letters. And so if you look at the ancient, that the letter I is circular, that's because it literally comes from your eyes. That's why it has the letter I. How do you say I in Hebrew? Does anybody know? How do you say I in Hebrew? I'll give it to you for time's sake, of course. Ayan. Ayan. All right? Ayan. 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 Ayan is how you would say I in Hebrew. Ayanyum is how you would say eyes in Hebrew. But it's still, at the end of the day, Ayan. Ayan. All right? These are your Ayanyum. The next letter we have is your pa. You have your pa in the Syrian and you have your pa in the ancient. Now focus on that pa where the arrow is pointing to. Same concept of the other letters, all right? This is how you know that whatever word you are reading, if you see that pa, that's how you know it ends with the letter pa. All right? That's how you know it ends with the letter pa. This is your Syrian script right here. This is your ancient. Next is you have your taza. Copy that. You have your taza. I must have clicked it twice. I like it. So you have your taza. You have your taza in the Syrian. You have your taza in the ancient. Very same concept. All right, has the very same concept of the ya, the ma, the na, etc., etc. All right, the qua, it's like the pa. And here you go. Here you go with the taza. Very same concept. You see this right here? Pay attention where the arrow is pointing to. This is how you know a word ends with taza. All right, this is how you know a word ends with taza. All right, taza, taza. All right, taza, not taza, taza. All right, taza is found at the end of a word. All right, when it comes to what the arrow is pointing to, this is how you know that the word ends with taza, because it's found at the end of a word. Next is you have your qua. Your qua. Your qua. You have your qua in the Syrian. You have your qua in the ancient. The qua in the Syrian, your qua in the ancient. All right. Here's you have your Ra. You have your Ra in the Assyrian. You have your Ra in the ancient. All right, Ra as in Rahab or Ra'aib. Ra'aib. You guys know what Ra'aib means? Ra'aib. Ra'aib means to be hungry. Ra'aib means to be hungry. Ra as in Ra'aib. Ra'aib. Pretty easy, right? 2 more letters to go. I didn't mean to click on that. It's going to go to it too. Of course it is. We will be going over those fundamentals though too. So let's get the alphabet knocked out the way first. All right. What you see on the board is your Shah. Your Shah. You have your Shah in the Assyrian. You have your Shah in the ancient. Next is you have your Tha. You have your Tha in the Assyrian. And you have your Tha in the ancient. So your Tha in the Assyrian, your Tha in the ancient. All right. So of course, we're going to be going over a little bit of sentence structuring today. So let's get some of these fundamentals when it comes to sentence structuring. Because once you start structuring sentences, all right, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get into reading sentences. Well, first you're gonna learn how to read sentences, then you're gonna structure sentences. But overall, we're going over sentence structure and present, future, and past tense. We're working on conjugating verbs and verb conjugations. All right. And verb conjugations are based off of the tense that is being used in. And you have 3 tenses. You have the present tense, you have the past tense, and you have the future tense. Majority of the tenses has their own specific way of conjugating them. All right. Conjugations are very important. It gives everything context. It gives everything the tense that's being said in. All right, etc., etc. And so when it comes to structuring sentences, there's a few basic fundamentals that you kind of want to keep in mind of, and they're on the board. And what it is Hebrew prefixes is what you see on the board, what you see on the screen. Now these prefixes, meaning these words or these letters, they come in front every word. They come in front of a word, and they're used in conjunction with it, and they're also attached to the actual word itself, meaning you're not going to separate it in any way, form, or fashion. All right, you're going to keep it together. All right, and so these Hebrew prefixes go as it says. Your ya means he. All right, usually used in conjunction with verbs. You have your ha, which means the. You have your ba, which means in, Just your ba means in. Your ha means the. Your ba means in. All right. The wa, your wa means and. Your wa means and. Then you have your la. Your la means two or four. So if I say like la to such and such, meaning this is for or to that person I'm speaking to. La, two or four. Then you have ka, meaning like or as. So when you put ka in front of a word, you're using it within a sentence to create a simile, meaning this is like a car, but it's not a car. This is like a picture, but it's not a picture, etc., etc. That's the letter ka. All right. Now remember, these prefixes are attached to a verb itself. You're never going to find a prefix that's not attached to a word in Hebrew. It's very rare. Very rare. I have not run into it yet. I've seen object pronouns, all right, used by themselves. So that's a case by case scenario. All right, case by case scenario, and we'll get into those type of lessons later on. So let's focus on here. Then you have shal, meaning who, which, cause, sake. Then you have your ma meaning from. Ma meaning, like let's say I say ma Jersey, I'm saying from Jersey. All right. If I say, let's say you have a word that comes, let me see. Let's think of a word. No, that's not good. That's not a good one. Trying to think of a good example when it comes to ma. Okay, perfect. So there's a Hebrew word in Hebrew. Well, there's a Hebrew word, of course, um, and in the ancient, it's pronounced as let's do Marakab. So you have a Hebrew word that's pronounced as Rakab. Rakab means to ride. Rakab means to ride. So if you say I'm Rakab, meaning you're telling me I'm riding something. I'm on something that moves. You guys get the point? But now let's say if I add a ma in front of that Rakab, I'm changing that meaning of the word to mean something similar. Does everybody understand? And so marakab in the Hebrew is now car or vehicle. But it stemmed from the word rakab because rakab just means to ride, drive, whatever the case may be. That's what rakab means. Marakab is like I wouldn't say a transliteration, but marakab is more so in our language. When you put that ma in front of a verb, that means something. So you want to be careful if you're ever using that ma freely with another verb or so. So let's go over some more fundamentals. Let's get into possessive pronouns real quick. It should be the possessive pronouns link. So here you go. Now this is one of the basic tools right, that you're going to have to know. So we know prefixes. Now let's learn Hebrew suffixes. In particular, this Hebrew suffix, meaning that comes at the end of a word or after a word. This possessive pronoun, this right here, this, I'm gonna call this in this case a Hebrew suffix. All right. They change to person, all right, when it comes to how it's used, because it's a possessive pronoun. So you have your ya in the Assyrian, and you have your ya in the ancient. This is another basic fundamental for structuring sentences, which means my. You have your ka, which means your. So you have your ka. Next, you have your wa, which means his. You have wa, that means his. Now remember, when it comes to possessive pronouns are used, will always be at the end of a noun. It will always be used in conjunction with nouns. You cannot use them anywhere else. Okay? Possessive pronouns can only be used with nouns. Keep that in mind. You don't want to forget that. Like you have your her. You have your her, which means her or hers. You have your nawa. You have your nawa in the Syrian. You have your nawa in the ancient. Your nawa means hour. Your nawa means hour. You have your calm. Calm. You have your calm in the Syrian. Your calm in the ancient. Meaning y'all in the masculine tense, or you all right, in the masculine tense. Remember, these are possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns are very important within sentence structuring. Why? Because a possessive pronoun being used properly is a sentence within its own. If you say his car, that's a sentence. That may be a response to a question. Like, oh, her house. That's a response to a question, right? Like this is sentence structuring. We're supposed to learn these things so we can get better at speaking these things to each other, all right? You want to become fluent in the language. You want to become as fluent as possible. Don't take it lightly. Then you have con. You have con. You have your ma. Ma. You have your ma. Ma means there in the masculine sense. Their house, their car, their shoes, their pants, their shirt, their light, their dark, or their darkness, whatever you want to say. You use ma at the end of that possessive pronoun. And it has to be used in conjunction with a noun. It can't be used in conjunction with any other kind of word. It's going to be attached to the end of a noun. Possessive pronouns will always be at the end of a noun, and that is a fact. Or it'll come after a noun or a fact. You have na. You have your na in the Syrian, and you have your na in the ancient. Right. All right. Next, we're going to do an object pronoun recap. And because we're doing an object pronoun recap, that's going to lead into a oth recap. All right. So you have your object pronouns. All right. Your object pronouns are always going to be used in conjunction with verbs. It also says at the bottom, object pronouns will always be used in conjunction with verbs. You're not going to see an object pronoun just by itself, just like you're not going to see a possessive pronoun just by itself. These words in the Hebrew language, they're attached to either nouns or verbs. Possessive pronouns are going to be attached to nouns. Object pronouns are going to be attached to verbs or used in conjunction with verbs. And depending how it's used, and because it's a pronoun, not really, because it's how it's used in most cases, your object pronoun is going to be attached to a word called oth. And oth technically isn't a word, it's a direct object indicator, meaning it allows you to pinpoint the direct object being used within a sentence. It's not just a regular Joe Smo sentence, all right? So you have your ya in Assyrian and your ya in ancient. Ya meaning me. You have your ka in Assyrian, and you have your ka in ancient. So like it. Next is you have your here's your ka. Next, we're going to get this is your wa. Salakia. This is your wa. And your wa means him. Next you have your ha. Salakia, your ha. Your ha means her. All right. Next letter. Remember, her is her. The next object pronoun. It's nawa, meaning us. Now, if you're paying attention, object pronouns and possessive pronouns are very similar to each other. All right. The only difference is they're different kind of pronouns. Right? They sound exactly the same in the Hebrew language, but they have different meanings because of what they're being used in conjunction with. Right? Even though a nawa sounds like a nawa as an object pronoun or to a possessive pronoun, one means us, one means our. One's used in conjunction with verbs, one is being used in conjunction with nouns. You want to pay very close attention to what is what and which. Okay? That's what you want to do. Next is you have your com, meaning y'all or you all or you plural. Com. Com. Come on here. Oh, there we go. Next we have is con. Con. Con is y'all or you all or you plural. Con. So now remember, like this is going to be used in conjunction with verbs. And most likely you're going to find this directly right after, if not attached to, the letter I. Does everybody understand? Then you have na. It's like a ma. You have ma. This is your ma in the Syrian. This is your ma in the ancient. Then you have your na. That's your na in the Syrian. That's your na in the ancient. All right. This is your oth. Anyone new to the class? Oth is used in conjunction with direct objects. All right. Examples of direct objects goes as follows. Personal pronouns. A personal pronoun. All right. Pay very close attention. A personal pronoun is an object pronoun. All right. And the, meaning like the rock, the car. That's how you know that you're gonna have to put a oth in front of those things, because this is not just an ordinary car. This is the car. This is the car. This ain't just a regular house. This is the house. There's emphasis on that, so you want to make sure you put oth if you're trying to put emphasis on it. And of course, if there's a direct object being displayed, you have to put a oth before the direct object being displayed. Oth will always be before the direct object no matter what. Meaning, if you see that there's a direct object within the sentence, you have to put the oth before it. So if the house is a direct object, oth has to come first. It cannot be the house oth. It has to say oth the house. Understood? Now, in further lessons, this is personal pronouns with oth. These are all personal pronouns with oth. This is how you would use oth in conjunction with personal pronouns. Keep that in mind. Take as much notes as possible. Let's see. Just 1 second. Bear with me. Use the best Salaki about that. So now what we have on the board, right? You guys may have been looking at it for a bit. Personal pronouns with I. All right. Now when you're messing with personal pronouns with I, all right, this is a part of basic sentence structuring. All right. When you're starting to use object pronouns in conjunction with verbs, this is how it's going to look. Because an object pronoun, all right, or a direct object, if we go back on how to use I, examples are personal pronouns. So I is used in conjunction with direct objects, which is a personal pronoun. So direct object is a personal pronoun, at least in retrospect. And so now, this is how you would use I in conjunction with an object pronoun, because an object pronoun is a personal pronoun. Does everybody understand that? An object pronoun is a personal pronoun. And so this is how it would look. Afya, which means me. Afka, which means you. Now you cannot use this by itself. There has to be a verb somewhere. All right. Like Nathanafya, give me. Baya'a afya, bring me. Yeah, I get the point. Afka, afwa, afha. So afka is you, afwa is him, afha is her, afnawa is us, afkam, which is you plural, afkan, which is you plural feminine, afma is them in the masculine, afna is them in the feminine. Now, another basic thing, real quick. Now, when we get into verb conjugations, remember, verb conjugations are important. You cannot conjugate a verb unless you know the what? The subject pronoun. If you do not know the subject pronoun, you're not going to be able to conjugate the verb. You need to know the subject pronouns. And so what you guys need to do is study these subject pronouns, commit them to memory, write them down, put it into your notes. So the first subject pronoun we have is anya, which means I or I am. All right, anya, which means I or I am. Now these are subject pronouns. These are subject pronouns. You have three kinds of pronouns. You technically have a little more than that, but to break it down in simple terms, you have three basic kind of pronouns. You have three basic kind of personal pronouns or pronouns, etc., etc. You have subject pronouns, you have object pronouns, and you have possessive pronouns. These are your subject pronouns, like I or I am. One's like atha, meaning you. Atha, meaning you. Atha, atha, meaning you. Atha, meaning you. You have hawa, 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 meaning he. Yeah, haya, 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 which means she. You have anak nawa, anak nawa, which means we. Anak nawa, which means we. Anak nawa meaning we. Next, you have a thumb. A thumb, you plural masculine. What we have here is a thun. Next, you have a thun, which is you plural but feminine. Next, you have is ham. Ham meaning they in the masculine form. Next you have is Han. Next is you have is Han. All right, Han. All right. All right. So now where we left off last week. All right. We're in the future tense. And so we're working on conjugations. Now remember, verb conjugations are just a change of a verb, meaning the original verb that you see right here to your right on the screen, meaning bana. Bana means to build. So bana means to build. This is your ba, this is your na, this is your ha. This is in the ancient script. This is your ba, this is your na, this is your ha. This is in the Syrian script. Okay. And so what you have here is your subject pronoun. Now remember, your subject pronouns like anya, ata, hawa, haya, anak, nawa. These are atam, atan. Like these are all subject pronouns. And so with that being said, remember everything is conjugated based off of your subject pronoun. You're not going to know how to conjugate anything or say anything unless you know your subject pronoun, right? And so this subject pronoun is hawa, meaning he. Now, every last subject pronoun has its own way of conjugating any verb, all right? In this case, right, you want to look for the root word. The root word is bana, bana, bana. See how this is bana? See how that's bana? This is your ba, your na, and your ha in the ancient. This is your ba, your na, and the ha in the Syrian. So here, to make it easier for everybody, I wrote it in the ancient. This is your ba, this is your na, this is your ha. This is the root word. So now you know the root word. So if you were reading this in the scripture, or you were reading something like this in the scripture, you know that this word ba na ha, that is your root word, and that means to build. But there's a ya in front of it. That ya is how you conjugated it. That ya is what made it change. That's just how you know it's being conjugated in the present, in the future tense, meaning whoever he is, hawa'a, he's going to build it. He will build it. So ya bana means he will build. Ya bana. So ya bana, meaning he will build. Ya bana, meaning he will build. Ya bana, he will build. Salakia. Salakia. One second. So we're going to continue where we left off. Next week, we're going to go straight into conjugating the next verb. I may change the verb up so we can learn a different verb. But we're going to learn a new conjugation or two. The computer's acting kind of slow. But all right, with that, I say Shalom Israel. Shalom, Lord in Christ. Shalom, Yahweh Hashem Shabbat Thumb to the brothers, and Shalom, Yahweh Shamar Latham Bashem Yahweh Shai to the sisters. Shalom.